Welcome to English Through Great Stories. Today we tell the story of a man who dreamed of giving free energy to the world, a man whose mind created the modern age, and a man who died alone in a small hotel room, his greatest dreams forgotten. This is the tragic life of Nikola Tesla. The story ends on the 33rd floor of the Hotel New Yorker, room 3327. It is January 1943. Outside, the city is a symphony of electric lights, a world that one man more than any other had helped to create. Inside, that man is 86 years old and very tired. He spends his days with his only friends, the pigeons of New York City. He understands them, he says. They understand him. He is a genius, a poet of science, and he is completely alone. How did the man who electrified the world end up in the dark? Our story begins not with an end, but with a storm. Chapter 1. A spark in the storm. Nikola Tesla was born at midnight between July 9th and July 10th, 1856. He was born in a small village called Smiljan in what is now Croatia, and he was born during a wild lightning storm. The sky was filled with light and sound. The midwife, the woman helping his mother, was afraid. She said, "This child will be a child of darkness." But Tesla's mother, Duca, replied, "No, he will be a child of light." His mother was a brilliant woman. She could not read, but she invented tools to help her on the farm and in the house. She had a memory that could hold entire epic poems. Nikola inherited this gift. He had what we call an eidetic memory. He could remember entire books, complete images with perfect detail. He didn't just see his ideas in his mind. He could build them, test them, and perfect them, all without touching a single tool. His father was a priest. He wanted his son to follow him into the church. But young Nikola was fascinated by science, by the invisible forces that shape our world. This created a tension, a conflict in his young life, a choice between faith and science, between his father's path and his own. Fate made the choice for him. When he was 17, Tesla became very sick with cholera, a terrible disease. He was close to death for 9 months. One day, his father, desperate to give his son hope, came to his bedside. He made a promise. "If you live," he said, "I will send you to the best engineering school in the world." Suddenly, from that moment, Tesla began to recover. The promise of a life dedicated to science was the medicine he needed. He had found his purpose, and that purpose would take him far from his small village, across an ocean to a new and exciting land. Chapter 2. The New World. Tesla studied in Graz, Austria. He was an incredible student, working from 3 a.m. to 11 p.m. every day. He learned so much, so fast, that his professors thought he was cheating. But he also had a difficult time. He developed a serious gambling problem, losing all his money. He was brilliant, but he was also human, with human weaknesses. After school, while working in Budapest, he had the most important vision of his life. He was walking through a park with a friend, reciting poetry as the sun set. And then it appeared in his mind, like a flash of lightning. He saw a motor, a new kind of motor, powered by a rotating magnetic field, using something called alternating current, or AC. He quickly drew a diagram in the sand with a stick. This idea, this AC induction motor, was the key that would unlock the modern electrical age. He knew he had to go to America. It was the land of invention, the land of opportunity. In 1884, he arrived in New York City. His journey had been difficult. He was robbed and lost his ticket and his money. He arrived with only 4 cents in his pocket, a book of his favorite poems, and a letter. It was a letter of introduction to the most famous inventor in the world, Thomas Edison. The letter said simply, "My dear Edison, I know 2 great men, and you are one of them. The other is this young man." Tesla was ready to meet his hero. Chapter 3. The War of Currents. Thomas Edison was a practical man. He was a brilliant inventor, but he was also a businessman. His company was built on his system of electricity, direct current, or DC. DC was safe, but it was inefficient. It could only send power a short distance, about a mile. It required a power station on every city block. It was limited. Tesla arrived and immediately began impressing Edison with his genius. He worked tirelessly, improving Edison's DC generators. Edison was so impressed that he made a promise. "If you can fix these machines," Edison said, "I will give you $50,000. In 1885, $50,000 was an enormous amount of money. Tesla worked for months and solved the problem completely. He went to Edison to collect his reward. Edison laughed. "Tesla," he said, "you don't understand our American humor. There was no money. It was just a joke." For Tesla, it was a deep betrayal. It wasn't just about the money. It was about respect. He quit his job that day. The next year was the hardest of his life. The genius who dreamed of new motors was forced to work digging ditches for $2 a day just to survive. He said the experience was terrible, but it taught him humility, and he learned about the lives of ordinary people. But his luck was about to change. He found new investors and was introduced to a man named George Westinghouse. Westinghouse was a wealthy inventor and businessman, and a rival to Thomas Edison. Unlike Edison, Westinghouse listened to Tesla's ideas about alternating current. He saw the future in them. AC could travel for hundreds of miles with very little power loss. It was the future of electricity. Westinghouse bought Tesla's patents and hired him. Together, they began to build a new system. This started the famous War of Currents. Edison, seeing a threat to his business, began a campaign to scare the public about AC. He claimed it was dangerous and deadly. He held public demonstrations where his workers used AC electricity to kill stray dogs and cats, and even an elephant, to prove his point. Tesla fought back. He held his own demonstrations. In a spectacular show, he would stand on a stage and let hundreds of thousands of volts of AC electricity pass harmlessly through his own body, lighting up lamps he held in his hands. He was a showman, a magician of science. The war had 2 major battles. The first was the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. Westinghouse and Tesla won the contract to light the entire fair. It was called the City of Light, and it was a magnificent success. The public saw the power and beauty of AC electricity for the first time. The second and final victory was Niagara Falls. They won the contract to build the world's first major hydroelectric power plant. It was an engineering marvel. Tesla's childhood dream of harnessing the power of the great waterfall had come true. The war of currents was over. Tesla and AC had won. The world would never be the same. Chapter 4. The Magician of Wardenclyffe. Tesla was now famous. He was at the height of his power. His New York laboratory was a place of fantasy and wonder. He entertained famous writers like Mark Twain, showing him his amazing inventions. He created artificial lightning, developed some of the first neon lights, and experimented with X-rays. But he was already dreaming of something bigger. His next great obsession was wirelessness, the idea of sending power and information through the air without any cables. In 1899, he built a special laboratory in Colorado Springs. There, under the vast American sky, he conducted his most spectacular experiments. He created lightning bolts over 100 feet long. The sound was heard miles away. In one experiment, he lit 200 light bulbs from a distance of 26 miles with no wires. He had proved that wireless energy was possible. With this knowledge, he returned to New York with his grandest vision yet. He called it his world system. He would build a giant tower on Long Island. This tower, called Wardenclyffe, would be the heart of a global network. It would send messages, pictures, and even electricity to any point on the planet. It was the internet, wireless charging, and global positioning, all imagined in 1901. It was the dream of a connected world with free, clean energy for everyone. He got the funding from one of the richest men in America, the banker J.P. Morgan. Construction began. The tower rose from the ground, a magnificent structure, almost 200 feet tall. Tesla poured all his energy, all his soul into this project. This was his masterpiece. But then disaster struck. Another inventor, Guglielmo Marconi, was also working on wireless communication. Using many of Tesla's own patents, Marconi successfully sent the first wireless signal across the Atlantic Ocean. It was just a single letter, the letter S, but it was enough. The world celebrated Marconi as the inventor of radio. When J.P. Morgan heard the news, he saw no reason to continue funding Tesla. Marconi had already achieved wireless messaging with much less money. More importantly, Morgan realized something about Tesla's plan. If you are sending free energy through the air, he asked, where do we put the meter? How can you charge people for it? The dream of free energy was not a profitable dream. Morgan pulled his funding. Tesla was ruined. He had no more money. The beautiful tower, his symbol of the future, was left to rust. Years later, it was torn down and sold for scrap metal to pay his debts. For Tesla, this was more than a failure. It was the death of his greatest dream, and it was the beginning of his long, slow decline. Chapter 5. The Lonely Years. The world moved on, but it seemed to leave Nikola Tesla behind. The 20th century was built on his inventions, but his name began to fade from public memory. He continued to have ideas, filing patents for things like vertical takeoff aircraft and particle beam weapons he called death rays. But he had no money to build them. The world saw him as less of a genius and more of an eccentric old man. He lived his final decades in a series of New York hotels, always moving when the bills became too high. He had strange habits. He was obsessed with the number 3. He had to have 18 napkins on his table at every meal. He was terrified of germs and of touching hair. His greatest comfort came from the pigeons in the park. He would go every day to feed them. He would bring injured birds back to his hotel room to heal them. He developed a special connection with one particular pigeon, a beautiful white female. He said he loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman. One night, he claimed, the white pigeon flew into his room. A brilliant light came from her eyes, and then she died in his arms. In that moment, Tesla said, he knew his life's work was finished. He was no longer the brilliant showman, the revolutionary inventor. He was a tall, thin old man, walking through the city he helped to light, talking to birds. A ghost from a brighter past. Conclusion: the light that remained. And so we return to where we began, room 3327. On January 7th, 1943, Nikola Tesla died of a heart attack. He was 86 years old. A hotel maid found him 2 days later after ignoring the "Do Not Disturb" sign he had placed on his door. Shortly after his death, the FBI seized all of his papers and belongings. They were looking for his secret weapon designs. The man who gave so much to the world was treated in the end like a potential enemy. The tragedy of Nikola Tesla is not that he died poor and alone. The tragedy is that he lived in a future that only he could see, while the world around him was not yet ready. He dreamed of connecting humanity, of providing clean and free energy, of ending war. He was a man of the 21st century, living in the 19th. But his light was never truly put out. Today, his name is famous again. We name electric cars after him. We see his ideas everywhere. Every time you turn on a light, use your Wi-Fi, or listen to the radio, you are part of Nikola Tesla's dream. He was a child of the storm, a child of light. And his light, against all odds, continues to shine. Thank you for listening to English Through Great Stories. Join us next time for another story to help you learn.